Welcome everyone to session 3 of the 16th Asia Pacific Sociological Association Conference. This session is broadcasted live via the Facebook page APSA Conference 2021 as seen on the bottom of your screens. Again, the Facebook page is APSA Conference 2021. This year's conference follows the theme Solidarity and Collaboration Among Sociologists in the Asia Pacific towards resilience and inclusive development. We would like you to contribute to the sociological discussions here at APSA 2021. Please be guided of the house rules for today's session. All guests and participants are automatically muted upon entry. The ceremony will be recorded for documentation purposes. For panelists, please keep your video off and your microphone muted, especially if it is not your turn to speak. For panelists as well, we will warn you when you only have 3 minutes left in your presentation. For the attendees, please send your questions and specify who it is addressed to the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen so that the session chairs can note this and raise it during our open forum. For those watching through the Facebook live stream, please send your questions through the live stream comment box. Let us now begin the webinar with a welcome message from the President of the Asia Pacific Sociological Association, Dr. Emma Porio.
Good day, everyone. Welcome to the second day of the 16th APSA conference. In 1996, the Philippine Sociological Society and the Philippine Social Science Council organized the first founding conference with the founding president, John Western, the legendary sociologist from Queensland University. Since then, APSA has been fortunate to have been led by distinguished sociologists from Australia, Japan, Thailand, and the Philippines. And we had conferences in the cities of Southeast and East Asia. In the future, I hope we will have conferences in the cities of South Asia, Central Asia, West Asia, and Pacific Asia. In 2012, the Department of Sociology, Institute of Philippine Culture of the Ateneo de Manila, and the Philippine Sociological Society organized the 11th APSA conference with leading sociologists from North America, from Taiwan, from Vietnam, from Thailand, from Australia, and you can see that in our program of abstract. So, in 2020, APSA President Miwako Husoda asked me if we can organize a webinar, and we decided to partner with 5 universities: Sydney University, Shisha University, Chulalongkorn, University of the Philippines, Visayas, and the Ateneo de Manila. And the 2 research divisions of the International Sociological Association, the medical sociology headed by Professor Miwako, and RC46, which I happen to head also. In this year, Kyoto University and Visayas State University joined the fold. Also this year, despite our teaching online courses and many virtual engagements, we managed to pull it off. I would like to thank our conference organizers and committee and all the support that we have gotten in order to pull this through. So I always say we social scientists must work together and collaborate. So if you notice, the theme of our conference is collaboration and solidarity among Asian sociologists, interrogating climate and inclusive development. So the past 2 years, the APSA conference themes have focused on what I call the twin crisis of our time: the climate crisis and the social inequality crisis, exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic and the consequences of the community lockdown. So these challenges have spurred creative and proactive responses among social and physical scientists, artists, in collaboration with the universities, local national governments, CSOs, and CBOs. So we hope that in APSA, we continually create spaces for creative and collaborative impetus and for our own theorizing, empiricizing, and analyzing, albeit in new and dynamic forms, the interrogation of our what I call our existential crossroads of our time, brought about by this crisis and challenges. So on behalf of the Asia Pacific Sociological Association officers, advisors, and organizing committee, I would like to welcome you, and I hope we will have a very dynamic discussion. Yesterday, we had very interesting discussions of COVID-19 and health inequality, social scientists from South Asia, from North America, from Southeast Asia and Australia, on really looking at the historical and structural underpinnings of inequalities, of the pandemic, or what we call it syndemic. And so I hope today also we will have a very good discussion on climate, health, and equity. I would also like to thank our ADMO president, Roberto Yap, also project holder of the Coastal Cities at Risk, our Ateneo de Manila School of Social Sciences Dean, our chair of the Department of Sociology and Anthropology, Professor Canoday, I forgot to mention Dean Saloma of the School of Social Sciences. And of course, yesterday, I really would like to thank Michael Burawoy, who gave us a very good welcome introductions. And I think we will play his welcome message again. And then also I'd like to thank Melanie Robertson for his support of our engagements here. So I really would like that our gathering today, albeit virtually, and also under confinement, is really, I would always say, our gathering is always premised on trust and collegiality. That by working together, we can contribute to a more collaborative and more united future. Thank you very much. Joy, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Porio. We now move on to our welcoming messages. We will hear first from the Ateneo de Manila University President, Father Roberto C. Yap, SJ, who is also the project holder of the Coastal Cities at Risk in the Philippines, Investing in Climate and Disaster Resilience Project.
On behalf of Ateneo de Manila University, I welcome you to the 16th Asia Pacific Sociological Association Conference. The theme of the 2021 conference, Solidarity and Collaboration Among Sociologists in Asia Pacific Towards Resilience and Inclusive Development, emphasizes the need for sociologists to consolidate their knowledge and expertise in order to contribute even more significantly to finding solutions to the world's most intractable problems. However, the complexity of these challenges, the global pandemic, climate change, gender equity, poverty and hunger, and so much more, demands that sociologists also collaborate with others beyond their discipline, with researchers and practitioners in science and technology, business and economics, governance and policy, and all other sectors of society. As the topics of this year's conference attest, this multidisciplinary collaboration is a distinctive strength of the Asia-Pacific Sociological Association. As sociologists, your research and insights in human social relationships and institutions are critical to the transformation and development of our society into one that is resilient and inclusive. May the additional knowledge and engagements that you will gain in this conference deepen your commitment and inspire you to continue your meaningful work for the advancement of humanity. I wish you a productive and enjoyable conference.
Thank you for that, Father Bobby. Now we will hear from Dr. Melanie Robertson, Senior Program Specialist of the Climate Change Program of the International Development Research Center in Canada, or IDRC.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Melanie Robertson, and I'm a Senior Program Specialist at IDRC, the International Development Research Center. For people who don't know IDRC, we are part of Canada's foreign affairs and development efforts. We fund and support high-quality research all around the world. We share knowledge with researchers and policy makers to inform actions, and we also mobilize partnerships all around the world. First, I would like to thank Dr. Emma Porio for the invitation to say a few welcoming remarks today for the session, Climate Change, Equity, and Community Resilience. Combating climate change and inequalities are the main drivers behind our work at IDRC. And these guide our vision towards a more sustainable and inclusive world. Research is vital towards developing evidence-based solutions. I think everybody in the room will agree with this. However, for research to be successful, it must be needs-driven, solution-oriented, inclusive, and consider absolutely marginalized and vulnerable groups. Gender, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, age, and physical ability are all factors that influence how individuals experience climate change and adapt to its impacts. Although women, indigenous peoples, ethnic minorities, and people living in precarity contribute the least to climate change in terms of emissions, they suffer the most from its negative impacts. For climate action to be really effective, it must be based on research that help us to understand the interrelated climatic, environmental, cultural, social, economic, political factors that exacerbate the different impacts of climate change. We also need to really improve our understanding of how climate action can support social equity and enable everyone to increase their resilience and become positive agents of transformation. This is what brings you here today. I wish you a very great session, and thank you again, Emma, for this opportunity to say a few words on behalf of IDRC. This is an honor. Thank you.
Now, we will hear from Dr. Michael Burawoy, APSA advisor from the University of California, Berkeley.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Emma, Dr. Porio, for your invitation to offer my remote welcome to the participants in your conference. I speak to you from Boston, USA, and these, we all know, all over the world are very difficult times, times in which the future of the planet itself is in balance, times when sociology has a crucial role to play, bringing hope by imagining alternative futures. But as sociologists, we have to understand both utopian possibilities, but also the constraints on those possibilities. Indeed, sociology is suspended between utopian and anti-utopian thinking. In these times, we need to draw on all the resources at our command, not least on the inspiration from the great sociologists of the past. In recent years, I've been inspired by the life and work of W.E.B. Du Bois, undoubtedly the greatest American sociologist. Also, in my view, the greatest public sociologist to have walked the planet. Born in 1868, just 3 years after the end of the US Civil War, he died in 1963 at the age of 96 in Ghana, self-exiled from the US. Why have we not heard more about him? Indeed. Although educated in the historically Black Fisk University, although he was the first Black PhD from Harvard, although he spent years at the University of Berlin, nonetheless, he was systematically excluded from established white universities and mainstream sociology, taking up a position at the Black Atlanta University. He developed his own Atlanta School of Sociology that preceded the Chicago School by 20 years, conducting research every bit as meticulous as the Chicagoans. Until recently, his enormous achievements were denied, but today we are increasingly turning to them. After 13 years of mounting frustration and racism, Du Bois left Atlanta University to found the NAACP, that is the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the famous civil rights organization, and became editor of its magazine, The Crisis, for 25 years, from 1910 to 1934. He showed how effective a resolute public sociology can be. He was not only an editor, but he continued to be a scholar, a poet, a novelist, and a dramatist. There were no limits to the ways he communicated his original sociology. Through most of his life, he saw the solution to social problems as a form of democratic socialism. But that itself, he always insisted, depended on first solving the race problem. At the turn of the 20th century, he proclaimed the color line as defining the future. This led him to being a leading Pan-Africanist. It led him to see how the US imperialism was thwarting the freedom of the darker races throughout the world. And his ideas stretched beyond Africa to Asia too. After World War II, he was a leader of the international peace movement, which put him on the wrong side of the Cold War, at least on the wrong side as far as the US state was concerned. He was indicted by the US state as an undeclared foreign agent, but the case had ultimately to be thrown out. He was embraced by the Soviet Union and China as a celebrated opponent of the US state and a determined advocate of civil rights. He lived the last years of his long life in self-exile in newly independent Ghana at the invitation of President Kwame Nkrumah. US mainstream sociology made every effort to bury his extraordinary contributions, in particular his reinterpretation of US history, an reinterpretation that centered the role of African Americans, even as they faced assaults on their existence. US sociology disparaged his genius because it didn't want to be linked to his radical politics, politics that are now inspiring a rethinking of the past and the present, and indeed the future. Today, we need such global figures to inspire reconnections across the face of our devastated planet, reconnections that will attempt to save humanity from the disasters it has created. The Asian Pacific Sociological Association is undertaking the important task of building an international community to address such entangled global problems as climate change, pandemics, and inequality. Congratulations to Dr. Porio and her colleagues for mounting this conference despite everything. Thank you very much.
So again, we would like to thank Dr. Michael Buraway, Dr. Melanie Robertson, and Father Bobby Yap for their support in the Asia Pacific Sociological Association.